We now have all the controls available for the animator to create animation on this character. So the next thing is to make it easy for the animator to see the controls that he's using for animation. This is where armatures come in. Armatures can be found in the Setup tab under the Armature sub-tab. Armatures are very extensive in Messiah. They cover practically every aspect of Messiah and can be accessed in any mode. You can see armatures at work right away just by looking at the 3D view. We'll see basic screen controls. Everything here, as you highlight it, will show up inside the 3D view. You can use armatures to create your own interface inside Messiah for each character. So let's take a look at the problems that we can solve with armatures. Let's click into the Animate tab. Just looking at this right now, you can see that it's going to be really hard to find all of the animation controls inside our hierarchy. For example, middle mouse clicking on one of the fingers brings up the controls that you can't even see inside the view. You have to expand the view to take a look. Objects this deep in the hierarchy really make a lot of clutter when you need to animate. So reducing that to an armature control can really make a lot of difference when you need to see everything in a list. We'll start with the fingers. So go into Setup, and we're going to add an armature for the right side of the fingers. Let's zoom in on the top, and we'll take a look. We have all of the bones visible on the fingers. Let's make the list a little bigger here. So the first thing we'll do is create a new armature. You see an armature pops down here below. We'll double click on that and we'll name that Nate Armature. Check real-time draw and we'll just drop down some icons on the tips of each finger. You'll see they'll all go in as equal children. We'll name this first one Nate underscore thumb control R. The next one would be Nate underscore index control R. Next one, Nate underscore middle control R. Next one, Nate underscore ring control R. And then the last one, Nate underscore pinky. We uncheck that. You'll see when I added these armatures, they added into the 3D view. Go to a perspective view, you can see that there are some armatures around here. They're just added from the top view. They have nothing to attach to. They're just simply icons sitting in 3D space. So we need to make something that they can attach to. There's options underneath each of these armatures that allows us to do that. What the armature attaches to is called a controller. So we can select the thumb. Let's go to thumb 2R and it will snap to the controller. The armature now knows where it's supposed to be in 3D space. So do that for all of these. Index control. Go down here to index 3R, which is the tip. The middle control. Let's go to middle 3R. Ring control goes to ring 3R. And pinky control goes to the pinky. So now they're sitting in 3D space. We can also attach commands to these armatures. In our case, we're going to attach like a curl command. If you go to the action block, there's a type of action that you can perform inside Messiah, a drag or a click. We'll leave it to drag, and underneath the add action, we're going to select controller drag, which means whenever we click on the armature, it will select the controller and move that instead. So we'll start with thumb control R here. Let's circle around until we can see the thumb. And add the controller drag to it. Open up the controller drag, we'll have these three options underneath the controller. This is left mouse button, middle mouse, and right mouse button. We'll use the left mouse button to control a channel, which is this icon, which reads 0. 0, 1, and 2 are translate channels, X, Y, and Z. 3, 4, and 5 are rotation channels. We'll go down to 4. 4 is pitch. We can deactivate the other two since we're only going to be using pitch. We go into Animate, and we grab that armature. We can pitch his thumb up and down. Go back into Setup, and we'll do the same thing for the other ones. Go to Index Control Right. We'll add a controller drag to that one. We'll change the first channel to 4 and deactivate the other two. Middle Control Right. Do the same thing. First channel set to 4. Kill the other two. So now when we go back into animate mode, we have these controllers on the tip of his fingers that we can click with the left mouse button and move up and down. What's really nice about this is now we can shut down the entire hierarchy and we can still edit those channels. And these channels will still be creating actual keyframes on these bones. So now we'll go back into setup and add that for the left side. Switch to a top view and we'll move to the left. I'm going to time lapse this so you can see what's going on. So we've set up finger controls for all of the fingers. Now we can hide all of those bones and we won't need to use any of them. Let's further refine this by adding another controller to control the spread on each finger. So while we're inside Armatures, we'll just start with thumb control R, go to real-time draw, let's head on over to the R side, and we'll click another controller in. We'll parent that to thumb control, and we'll call this one thumb base control R. We'll set its controller to thumb R, which will show up down there. And it also draws a line to its parent. We'll turn off show line so we just have these. Do the same thing for index. We'll add another one called index control. Let's parent that one. We'll call this one index base control R. Set its controller to index R. Uncheck show line. Do the same thing for middle. Middle base control R. Parent that to middle control. Turn off the line and set it to middle R so it snaps right to. Ring. Add one to that. Parent that to ring control R. Call this one ring base control R. Set its controller to ring R. Pinky. Pinky base control R. Turn off show line. So we can do the same thing here. Let's add a controller drag to thumb base control R, and on left mouse we'll set the left mouse button to pitch, and we'll set the right mouse button to heading, which is channel 3, and we'll deactivate the middle mouse. So if we go into animate and we left mouse click, let me zoom in here. If we left mouse click on the thumb, we can move it up and down. If we right mouse click on the thumb, we'll rotate it in and out on heading. Let's go back into setup. Let's do the same thing for the rest of them. Index base control right, add another controller drag. We'll set the left mouse button to pitch, channel 4, and the right mouse button to heading. We'll deactivate middle mouse button. Go all the way down the list and do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, deactivate middle mouse. So now when we're in animate mode, we can right mouse click and left mouse click to alter the base of all of these, and then curl the entire finger with the other controller. And quickly go into setup and we'll time lapse the other side. Okay, so now we have all of the armature set up for the fingers, so we won't have to dig deep down into the hierarchy to find the fingers. We can add a different kind of action to more armatures if we want to. For example, let's do a real-time draw, and we'll just click on the armature and click right in the middle of the wrist. We'll set this handle to be called Nate _ hand control R. We'll set the controller to wrist R, so it snaps right to the wrist. And we can add controller drags to move that around in heading and pitch, and we can add them in bank. But we're going to use a different type of action. We're going to go to the type, it's going to be click, and we're going to add an action called handle visibility. Now add that to Nate hand control R, and there's a thing called handle visibility that shows up. Underneath the visibility options, there's show handle, hidden, visible, and toggle. Toggle just means when it's clicked it will switch states. It will affect children. So the next thing we do, so we'll parent all of the right side to this hand control R. And while we're at it, let's toggle off the lines that draw to the parent. Turn off show line. And now we have everything underneath this hand control R. So if we click on it, everything disappears. Every time we click, it disappears. There's several options for the hand control R. There's a little icon that has the mouse, which means every time we click, the thing toggles. If we have two with the red mouse icon underneath it, it's a double click, because we don't want to select the wrist and have everything disappear on us. So let's switch into animate. If we double click, everything disappears and we just have control over the wrist. Double click, we can bring up the controls for the hand. We'll do the same thing for the left side. Go back into setup and we'll time lapse that. So now we have the basic armatures for the fingers set up. You can work your way up and add armatures for the elbows and the arms too. Let's do that. We're going to go back to a drag type and we'll close down all of our fingers because we don't need to use them anymore. So we'll just be adding actions. We'll start with hand control R. We'll add a controller drag action to it, and this controller drag will be active on left mouse. It will control pitch, and right mouse it will control heading. We'll deactivate middle mouse, or if you would like to use middle mouse for bank, bank is channel 5. So you will have all the control there. Same thing for hand control left. Channel 4 for the left mouse, channel 3 for the right mouse, channel 5 for the middle mouse. So now we go back into animate, switch to perspective view. We'll be able to move all of the wrist with just that one action. Now remember, we have this set on IK fade, so if it's on IK you'll have no control over that, and we'll have to switch to IK hand R to do any of your motion. Let's go into setup, tap the enter key, and we're going to create a key at frame 0 for all objects. That way we can stay inside the default position. Let's go back into setup, and under armatures we'll do the same thing that we did to the fingers to the elbow and the bicep. Start with the right side here. To stop those, go to armatures and click on real time draw. Just click 2 in there. First one will be Nate bicep control R and Nate _ forearm control R. Bicep control, set the controller to be bicep 1R, and forearm, the controller will be forearm 1R. Add a controller drag to bicep control. We'll do the same thing. We'll set the first button to pitch, channel 4, the last button to heading, channel 3, and the middle mouse button to 5, which is bank. Forearm control R, do the same thing, add a controller drag, but we won't need to use bank on this one, so we'll deactivate the middle mouse button. We'll set the first one to channel 4, last one to channel 3. We click into the animate, let's fade this to our IK. So when we click on the button, we control heading, middle mouse click, rotates on bank, pitch, bank, and everything's controlled. Go back into setup, we'll do the same thing on the left side. So we have all of our controls set up for the arms. Now we won't have to search through this long list. We can actually shut everything down, right down to the shoulder. So all that's left are back muscle left and right, which will red lock. We'll change their draw modes to N. And there's a shortcut to hiding the entire branch. That's holding down the control key and changing the parent's view. Change that to N, and then change the parent's view back to E. Do the same thing to shoulder left. Hold down the control key, change them all to N, and change the shoulder back to E. Go to File. We're going to save this scene as Nate Setup F.fxs.